integrity, to return to the diplomatic negotiation tables instead of tossing the Minsk agreement out the window as they chose to invade a sovereign, independent nation. Russia needs to stand down. It needs to understand that there are consequences for a country that chooses to use force, to violate fundamental precepts of international law that has kept our world remarkably stable for many, many decades. This is something that the entire world needs to stand together with, and Canada and its allies will stand up not just for our friends in Ukraine, but for the values and principles of democracy.
Merci. On va maintenant passer au téléphone.
Now we'll go to the telephone operator.
Time, if you have a question, s'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. Et la première question, the first question is from Ryan Tumilty, National Post. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. I'm wondering on the Emergencies Act, the streets in Ottawa are clear today of protesters. I'm wondering, the Emergencies Act talks about an ongoing emergency. When do you feel that this emergency will have ended and allow you to revoke the act?
As I said yesterday, this act was brought in because of an emergency, but it is proportional, it is scalable, it is time-limited and specific. Every day we receive information and briefings and analyze whether it continues to be needed, and we are looking to lift it as soon as possible. That decision will be made at the appropriate moment.
Following up.
Yeah, sir, I'm just wondering if you can be more specific. This is a huge piece of federal legislation meant to be used lightly. What is your threshold for removing it if it's not the clearing of border blockades and the streets in Ottawa?
That is exactly what we are looking at every single day as we analyze reports come in from across the country, as we hear the recommendations and operational issues faced by police agencies across the country and intelligence services. As I said many times, we do not want this Emergencies Act to be in place for a day longer than necessary, and we are looking very carefully every step of the way as to when it can be lifted. It was always reasonable, proportional, entirely subject to Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and specific and time-limited in its application. We continue to reevaluate to see when it will no longer be necessary.
Opérateur, prochaine question.
The next question, la prochaine question, Mélanie Marquis, La Presse.
Merci.
Thank you. My question is for Mr. Trudeau or for Ms. Annan with respect to the military deployment in Ukraine, what is already there, and with respect to the situation in Latvia. Is the goal of the mission changing? Could those people those military who are already there could their mission change, and could they be involved in something else? The Operation Unifier, which has been there for some years, is an operation that was intended to train Ukrainian military. And the majority, if not all of that, applied to who were dealing with a unifier have left Ukraine. But I think that the minister can deal with this more directly.
Bonjour.
Hello, Melanie. First of all, as I said, I think the safety of the Canadian Armed Forces are our absolute priority, of course. With respect to Operation Unifier, that is a very important training operation, like the Prime Minister said, but that has been temporarily suspended, and most of the soldiers are not in Ukraine at this time, but they are in Europe. Some military are in Ukraine to reinforce the embassy there, and we will make a decision with respect to that in coming days or weeks. With respect to Operation Reassurance, that is, as you know, our largest mission in Europe to reinforce the western flank of NATO. And today, it means that we are going to send several thousand more soldiers there. It's necessary. It's necessary to strengthen the western flank of NATO, but also to ensure that we are going to make our contribution to the NATO alliance. It's very important. Last week I said to my colleagues in Europe, I was there, I said to our partners there, we are there in the alliance, and we must do our share to strengthen NATO and support our partners there, our allies there. And why is that? It is for the stability of Europe and the sovereignty of Ukraine. We're there. We're there for our partners and our allies. Thank you. Well, it's not very clear in my mind what is the goal of the mission, if there is combat per se. My other question, with respect to the calling in of the ambassador, the Russian ambassador, apparently the response was, why did you wait so long to open up channels of communication? Thank you, Melanie. Operation Reassurance is there, as Melanie said, to make sure that NATO stays strong, protecting the countries in the West, our partners in NATO. We are part of that mission. We have increased our presence, but the mission remains the same. With respect to diplomacy, I'm going to give the Minister of Global Affairs the floor. Yes, thank you very much, Melanie. First of all, our channels of communication, as my colleague indicated, are open. They have been open since the very beginning, since Stockholm, since September, when I brought up concerns with respect to the Russian situation and Ukraine. First point. Second point, I instructed my deputy minister to meet with the Russian ambassador in Canada, to clearly explain that with our concern with the recognition of the two territories.
Thank you. La question suivante. The next question is from Stephen Chase from the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Question is about our embassy staff in Lviv, and are they still operating there, and how long are they going to operate there, or have you started removing them?
We, a number of weeks ago, started to scale down our presence in Ukraine for the protection of Canadians and Canadian consular services and families. Consular services continue, including a embassy staff in Lviv, but those decisions will be made day by day as to how long our ambassador stays there and the small staff she has around her. But I'll turn to, again, Minister of Foreign Affairs for further clarification on that.
Thank you, Steve. So there are members of Global Affairs Canada and their head of mission. Our ambassador is indeed in Lviv. They are also along other countries, including the UK and the US, which is also in Lviv. We decided to move our operations from Kiev to Lviv a couple of days ago, and that was for security reasons. But the goal was to stay in Ukraine as long as possible. We think it is important that we be there to offer consular services. And meanwhile, our advice to Ukrainian Canadians is clear. If you're in Ukraine, please leave now. Thank you.
Following up.
Yeah, the second question is about the 460 number. And my question is, how much of this number will be going to Latvia? And I assume the rest is you're just counting the people on the frigate and the people on the plane, which I assume is an Aurora.
Hi, Steve. Let me lay it out for you. An artillery battery of about 120 people, that is, will be the first element to deploy in 30 days for approximately 6 weeks. That congregation of people will be drawn from bases across the country. The large tranche of the 460 is going to be placed and part of the HMCS Halifax, as you suggested in your question, that will be deployed in March, towards the last part of March. And finally, the CP-140 Maritime Patrol aircraft will also have a contingent of that 460. So you can see that we are dividing up the contingent of 460 across these 3 different items. Thank you.
Thank you all. This is what ends today's press conference. C'est ce qui met fin à la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui. Merci.
Eight years or 10 years. When the Informer song, it's dance.
Bonjour tout le monde, merci d'être ici. Je suis accompagné aujourd'hui de la vice-première ministre Freeland et des ministres Joly et Anand. On condamne la reconnaissance par le président Poutine de Donetsk et Luhansk comme territoire indépendant. Canada strongly condemns President Putin's recognition of Donetsk and Luhansk as so-called independent states. This recognition